What are the causes of credit risk? What are the different sources that lead to the credit risk? Let's understand these in detail. The sources or causes of credit risk can be broadly classified into two. One is the systematic sources or causes. The second is the unsystematic sources or causes. Now let's first understand the systematic sources of credit risk. The systematic sources of credit risk, as the name indicates, exist in the entire financial system. So you cannot escape from those credit risks. An individual business or a firm is susceptible to the risks that are there in the entire financial system. I'll give you some examples and classifications of systematic credit risk. The systematic credit risk can be broadly classified into four. Number 1, social. Number 2, political. Number 3, economic. And number 4, global. The examples of social risk include law and order problems in the society, social unrest, job losses, and such other causes. These social issues do impact the business, because in the business environment, if for example law and order situation is not good, then the business is definitely likely to suffer. The political sources of systematic risk include unstable government. For example, a government which is formed by a coalition of different parties which do not see eye to eye, or a government facing a political crisis, maybe because the political party itself is getting split. Or for example, there is a military coup. So military has risen against the democratic government, in which case the entire financial system will suffer, and definitely the individual firms and businesses will suffer. Another source of political risk is the changes in the policies. For example, if one government follows the policy of infrastructure development, but the next government, when it comes into the power, withdraws all the support for infrastructure development, the people who are in that business will lose faith in the system. Also, if the infrastructure is not developed, subsequently there is going to be an adverse impact on the entire system. The economic sources of systematic risk include sudden economic downturn. For example, an economy which is performing well might get into a downturn because of, let's say, foreign exchange crisis, or maybe their trading partner with whom they have substantial trade itself gets into an economic crisis. Another example is depression. For example, in the economic cycle, we have booms and busts or depression. If the economy is in depression, all likelihood, all the businesses in the economy will definitely suffer. Yet another example would be, let's say, something like global financial crisis of 2008. Now that is something which has emanated and has impacted the entire US economy. Almost all the businesses in the US would have been impacted by GFC 2008. The foreign exchange crisis, for example, sudden currency devaluation, which can impact all the companies in the economy, and inflation is one factor that can impact every company. If the inflation rates go very high, for example, the economy gets into hyperinflation, like a lot of economies like Venezuela got into in 2022, all the companies, all the industries and the businesses within that economy will definitely suffer. Fourth source of the systematic risk are global risks. For example, any kind of a global crisis, be it war, and Russia and Ukraine war is one recent example. Then we have the global economic crisis, which will of course impact the individual economies and all the companies within that economy. Any kind of trade barriers, for example, if against a particular country, the trade barriers are imposed by the other countries because there is a general agreement on trade and tariff. Within that, the countries can negotiate what kind of tariffs can be imposed. If the countries unite against another country and against that country they impose trade barriers, that country is likely to suffer. Yet another factor which has influenced the economies globally is international terror. For example, a terror attack in any country is likely to impact the business environment definitely in that country, and also in the economies that are dependent on that particular country. The terrorist attack on the Twin Towers in the US in 2001 is an example where the impact was felt across the globe. To sum up, the systematic risk arises from various sources such as social, economic, political and global, and these impact all the companies and the industries within a particular economy. Also, one thing to note is that these risks are not diversifiable. The business or the investors cannot diversify these risks because the entire economy or the entire financial system has been impacted by those risks. The second broad classification of sources or causes of credit risk is unsystematic risk. By unsystematic, we mean those that don't impact the entire financial system. So these impact a particular industry, a particular region, or a particular business in that, let's say, region or a industry. These are definitely diversifiable. So you can diversify into, let's say, other industries, you can diversify into other regions. Let's say your manufacturing plant in one location where there's a social unrest, you can try setting up multiple manufacturing plants across various, let's say, states in India to make sure that your production facility is not impacted by a social unrest in one particular state. So these risks, which are called unsystematic risks, are inherently diversifiable and therefore they are better manageable. The unsystematic risk can arise because of the factors that are inherently attributable to a particular industry, or what we can call industry specific risk. For example, we know that steel and cement as industries are dependent a lot on the construction industry or infrastructure industry. If the construction or infrastructure industry faces a slowdown, steel or cement industry is likely to face a slowdown. So that is a specific risk that the steel and cement industries face. Therefore, these risks will impact all the players in those particular industries. Another source of unsystematic risk is the business risk, which are specific to a particular business. For example, if the key employees in a company exit and they take away, let's say, the company's business and the clients with them, the company is likely to suffer. If there is a trade unionism in the company, for example, the outside union comes and that union has a very violent or very confrontationist attitude with the management, then that particular company is likely to suffer. Likewise, any kind of worker issues, the lack of non-availability of skilled workers, etc., is very specific to that particular business, and that business is likely to suffer. If the particular business receives certain legal threats, for example, there is a community nearby and they are suffering because of that particular business and they go to the court of law, that business is likely to suffer. Likewise, if there is a customer dissatisfaction, the customers are not happy with your product or with your service, then your business is likely to suffer. So these are very specific to a particular business operation. Yet another source of unsystematic risk are what is called an operational risk. Operational risks principally are arising from factors like human resources, IT systems, or natural events. Examples are human resources, maybe people engaging into frauds or not treating the customers properly or not following the process, then in that case the business is likely to suffer. When it comes to IT systems, any kind of IT system failure is likely to impact business very heavily, because today most of the businesses are very heavily dependent on IT systems. Let's say the system fails, the business continuity plan doesn't work, the disaster recovery plan doesn't work, in that case the business will suffer heavily. Likewise, any kind of natural events, for example, the earthquake, floods, will definitely impact the business. If, let's say, there is a burglary or there is a theft, then business is likely to suffer the losses. So these are the kind of operational risks that impact the business, and they are unsystematic risks. They impact only the particular business and not the entire financial system. Yet another source of unsystematic risk is how the finances of the particular business are handled. For example, if the business is over leveraged, there is too much of a debt and the profitability is under pressure, in that case the business may not be able to service the loan. The loan repayments or the interest payments might get delayed, which means that the business will suffer the reputation and might be even taken to the court of law for bankruptcy. So this is an example of a business specific risk, which is called a financial risk, but for which this particular business is likely to suffer. Yet another example could be the non-recovery of the debt from the customers. You have given the credit to the customers, but the customers are not paying you. Any kind of liquidity issue that the business faces is another example of a financial risk. The business might suffer losses because, let's say, there was an uninsured inventory which got damaged, so business is not able to get the insurance claim from the insurance company, or because there is no demand, the inventory is getting piled up, so your current asset ratio is going haywire and a lot of money is getting locked into your current assets. So these kind of financial issues are likely to impact a particular business, but they are not the issues that impact the entire industry. So I hope you have understood very well these two broad sources of credit risk or causes of credit risk, which are unsystematic and systematic risk. I hope you have liked this video. If you have understood these broad sources of credit risk very well, please do like this video as well as share with your friends. Thank you very much. Cheers.